J-Cube AM News presents a newscast. Puerto Rico. Hashtag one day take. Hashtag low budget. Good morning, people of America. I am Dave from J-Cube AM News. And as many of you guys may have heard, Puerto Rico was recently struck by destructive Hurricane Maria. With overwhelming death counts and little to none resources, the people of Puerto Rico have truly been devastated by this storm which ravaged their homes. Here we have some pictures of the destruction brought by the hurricane. Here. We also have Steve at one of the sites reporting live. Steve?
Hello, Dave. Right now, I am here in one of the heavily affected sites, and things are looking pretty bad. I'm not sure what is being done to help, but I hear that the United Nations poverty expert will be coming to visit Puerto Rico to assess the damages.
That's great. Can we hear from some of the locals? How are they doing?
Right now, we are with Jose. Jose, how are you holding up?
Yes, sir. Things aren't looking good for me or my family, hermano.
And is your family okay?
I don't know where they are, hermano. Last thing I saw was my papa's boat floating off the shore. They were celebrating my sister's birthday, but I had beef with her, so I didn't go. I regret it, hermano.
Tragic. Now here we are with Maria, another local whose home was destroyed by the hurricane. Maria, how are you?
I'm devastated. No food, no house. It was all blown away by the storm. My kids don't have no school.
Do you think your government is doing everything they can to help you?
I'm not sure. Some people have gotten food, water, and the help they need, but there are some poor areas where the government hasn't even visited, let alone helped. There are also lots of power outages, and I'm not sure what the government is doing to fix those either.
What about shelter and healthcare?
There are lots of diseases and deaths going around right now, and we don't know where to go for help. Healthcare was complicated enough before the hurricane, but it's gotten even worse. Hospitals aren't prepared to help the patients, and doctors are leaving us when we need them the most.
Such unfortunate news. We are all praying for the well-being of everyone affected by Hurricane Maria. Although some questions we all might have are, how could things have gone so bad? Why isn't the U.S. doing much to help? Why is the country so unprepared for disasters like this? Thankfully, our special guest, who happens to be expert on Puerto Rican history, will answer all of those questions. Everyone, please welcome Markus Sanchez and Joshua Ramos. Markus, Joshua, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us. And it's just Sanchez, Dave, but never mind that. Hello everyone, this is my friend Josh.
Hello.
We are here to answer all your questions about Puerto Rico and its connections with the United States. When the U.S. first took over and annexed Puerto Rico, a paternal relationship developed between the U.S. and Puerto Rico, which never existed on the mainland. To further understand Puerto Rico's complicated relationship with the U.S., we need to take a trip back in time. It was 1898, and the Spanish-American War was drawing to a close. Puerto Rico had just recently gained independence from Spain and was now self-governing part of Spain. They even had their own constitution and voting rights. The US, however, destroyed all of that when they decided they wanted to conquer Puerto Rico.
The U.S. wanted to conquer Puerto Rico for a number of reasons. The first and foremost is that the U.S. wanted to conquer the island for its strategic location in the Caribbean Sea. If the United States gained control of Puerto Rico, then they could use the island's location to set up a naval base to protect trade routes and further advance the U.S. Navy. Another reason that the United States wanted to invade Puerto Rico, they wanted to develop a sugar market there.
And with all of these reasons in mind, the US began an invasion of the island in July 1898. There was little to none opposition, and the US succeeded in taking over the island with only 7 American deaths. When Americans first arrived on the island, they promised to protect the life, liberty, and happiness of the Puerto Ricans. Many inhabitants of the island, who were from the poor working class, decided to fight with the US against Spain. America won the war. Spain officially handed over Puerto Rico to the US in the Treaty of Paris. Oddly, America decided they didn't want to keep their promise. In order to create its own colonial system, the US disregarded the new local parliament of Puerto Rico. A US government and an executive council were appointed by the US government to rule the island. US judges were also appointed to Puerto Rican Supreme Court.
Puerto Ricans weren't U.S. citizens because although it was the 19th century and the U.S. was gaining new territories which could become states later on, Puerto Rico became an incorporated territory. This was because in 1901, a set of legal opinions known as the Insular Cases claimed that territories ceded by the Spanish were filled with alien races who didn't understand English principles. And that is why the Constitution did not apply to them. Since the Constitution didn't apply to them, Puerto Rico just became an incorporated territory with no way to become a state. This enraged Puerto Ricans because they were now stuck in the middle. They weren't citizens of the U.S. even though Puerto Rico was an American territory. This didn't change until 1917 when the Jones-Shafroth Act was signed. Under this act, Puerto Ricans became citizens of the U.S. With this, the U.S. could send off Puerto Ricans to fight in World War I. Even though the Jones Act granted them U.S. citizenship, Puerto Ricans could still not vote for presidents, senators, and representatives that had a vote in Congress. They still can't, as a matter of fact.
They can't vote? What can they do?
Well, they can elect a non-voting resident commissioner of Puerto Rico to the U.S. House of Representatives. The problem with this is that even though Puerto Rico has a voice in Congress, that voice has no right, and as a result, nobody really cares about Puerto Rico.
And how does the Puerto Ricans feel about this? Are they okay with this, or are there many oppositions?
Well, yes, during the 20th century, there have been a couple attempts by the Puerto Ricans to gain independence from the U.S., but they have all been crushed by the federal government through repeated jailings of opposition leaders and through obvious censorship.
Oh, so are there any revolutionary leaders that pop into your guys' head right now?
Yes. One particular leader that pops up into my head is Pedro Albizu Campo. He was an independence movement leader who was jailed in 1938 for assembling Puerto Rican workers.
That's great. I have one question though. You have told us a lot about the history of Puerto Rico, but you haven't really told us about Puerto Rico's economic crisis. How did that crisis come about?
Oh yeah, that. Well, as I said before, America was interested in developing a sugar market in Puerto Rico, and in doing so, they disrupted Puerto Rico's coffee industry, and this created a tremendous poverty throughout the island. The U.S. also invested greatly in the territory due to cheap labor, and by 1930, the U.S. investors owned 60% of the banking industry and public utilities, 80% of the tobacco plants, and 60% of all overseas shipping and sugar industry. Small plantation owners and independent farmers were destroyed because huge American sugar plantations took their place, and they were forced to sell there and or were paid very low prices for their goods. Most U.S. companies pay little to no taxes to the Puerto Rican state because, as I said before, it's a country that is heavily dominated by U.S. investors. Another factor that could have contributed to the economic crisis is the local government's immense corruption.
That's great. Thank you so much for enlightening us on this issue. One last question before you guys go. Is there any possibility that Puerto Rico can become a state, in your opinion?
In my opinion, no, not yet.
Why do you say that?
I say this because the only people who can include Puerto Rico as a state are the voting members of the Congress, and as we know, Puerto Rico has no voting members in the Congress. It's all the Congress's call if they want to make Puerto Rico a state or not. And from the recent news about the U.S.'s neglect of the island after the hurricane, we can truly see how much of the U.S. cares for Puerto Rico.
Thank you, Sanchez and Josh, for all your information today. You guys may go. And thank you all for watching tonight. I am Dave of JQ AM News, and tune in tomorrow to watch our segment on President Trump's tweet. Good night, everyone, and happy holidays.
Stephen Marcus.
Yes! Okay.
Wait, are we gonna do that? What happened?
What'd you do?
I didn't do anything.
No, what'd she do? Okay, 3.
Why are you counting?
When the U.S. first took over and annexed Puerto Rico, a paternal relationship developed between the U.S. and Puerto Rico, which is a type of relationship that never existed on the mainland. To further understand Puerto Rico's complicated relationship with the U.S., we need to take a trip back in time. It was 1898.
I'm sick, remember?
Oh,
No.
What's so funny? Stop laughing.
¿Cómo se llama? Que no me hayas usted.